A single forgotten photograph changed everything. When Wang Yibo opened an old wooden box he hadn't touched in years, he expected to find nothing more than dusty souvenirs from the past. Instead, a faded photograph slipped onto the floor. The moment he picked it up, his heart nearly stopped. His fingers trembled as he stared at the image. Standing beside him was Xiao Zhan, both of them smiling beneath a giant golden ginkgo tree. But that wasn't what shocked him. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten message that simply read, "No matter where life takes us, we'll meet here again someday." Wang Yibo frowned. He couldn't remember writing those words. He couldn't even remember taking the picture. Yet somehow, the handwriting looked painfully familiar. For the rest of the night, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Sleep never came. Every time he closed his eyes, flashes of laughter, falling leaves, and an unfamiliar promise filled his mind. By sunrise, curiosity had taken over. He drove to the place shown in the photograph, wondering if anything from that day still existed. The old ginkgo tree was still there, standing proudly on a quiet hill as if it had been waiting all these years. As he slowly walked toward it, a cool breeze carried golden leaves across the ground. Then he noticed something carved into the tree trunk. Two small initials, W and X. His breathing became heavier. Before he could process what he was seeing, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around, and standing just a few meters away was Xiao Zhan. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them moved. They simply stared at each other in complete disbelief, as though fate had brought them back to the exact place where a forgotten promise had been left behind years ago. Neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than the years that had passed. Wang Yibo tightened his grip on the faded photograph while Xiao Zhan's eyes slowly drifted toward it. A faint smile appeared on Xiao Zhan's face, but it disappeared almost as quickly as it came. "You found it too," he said quietly. Wang Yibo looked confused. "You knew this photograph still existed?" Xiao Zhan nodded. "Not exactly. I just had a feeling." Wang Yibo frowned. "A feeling?" Xiao Zhan let out a small laugh before looking up at the giant tree. 3 days ago, someone left an envelope outside my apartment. There wasn't any name on it. Just a single sentence. Wang Yibo's heart skipped a beat. What did it say? Xiao Zhan reached into his coat pocket and carefully unfolded a small piece of paper. The words written on it were almost identical to the ones behind the photograph. "Some promises are never forgotten." Wang Yibo stared at the note in disbelief. Who would send something like this? Xiao Zhan slowly shook his head. "I don't know. But I knew exactly where it wanted me to go." Another gust of wind swept through the golden leaves above him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply stood beneath the tree, both wondering why fate had brought them back after all these years. Finally, Wang Yibo broke the silence. "Do you remember this place?" Xiao Zhan looked around before answering. "Bits and pieces. I remember laughter. I remember someone saying we'd always come back here, no matter how much life changed. But everything after that feels blurry." Wang Yibo sighed. "That's exactly how I feel." As they searched around the tree, Wang Yibo noticed something sticking out beneath a pile of fallen leaves. It was a small metal box, almost completely buried beneath the soil. Together they brushed away the dirt and carefully lifted it out. The lock had rusted away long ago. Inside was another photograph, several handwritten letters, and an old cassette tape with a small label that simply read, "For the day you both return." Wang Yibo looked at Xiao Zhan in complete shock. "Someone knew we'd come back." Xiao Zhan carefully unfolded one of the letters. The paper had turned yellow with age, but the handwriting was still clear. "If you're reading this, then time has done exactly what I hoped it would. Memories fade, but true friendships never disappear. I knew one day life would send you both in different directions. Fame, success, responsibilities, all of it would make this place seem like a distant dream. But I also believed that one forgotten photograph would eventually guide you back here. Neither of them recognized the handwriting. They looked at each other, searching for answers neither of them had. Wang Yibo picked up the cassette tape and smiled. "Do you think it still works?" Xiao Zhan laughed softly. "Only one way to find out." Luckily, an old cafe nearby had been restored into a small museum. Inside, the owner collected vintage music players and antique cameras. When they asked if anyone still had a cassette player, the elderly owner smiled and disappeared into the back room. A few moments later, he returned carrying a dusty player that looked almost as old as the tape itself. Wang Yibo carefully placed the cassette inside. For a second, nothing happened. Then a soft crackling sound filled the room. Suddenly, a familiar voice began to speak. "If the two of you are hearing this, then congratulations. You kept your promise." Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan froze. They recognized the voice immediately. It belonged to an elderly photographer who had often visited the hill years ago, always carrying an old camera around his neck. He used to tell everyone that photographs were little pieces of time that refused to disappear. The recording continued. "The day I took your picture, both of you told me something I'll never forget. You said that no matter how busy life became, friendship should never be measured by distance or silence. So before I left this town, I buried this box beneath the tree, hoping one day you'd find it together. If you're standing side by side now, then maybe the world still has room for promises that survive the passing of time." The recording ended with nothing but the gentle sound of birds singing in the background. Neither Wang Yibo nor Xiao Zhan could say a single word. The cafe owner smiled warmly. "I remember that photographer. He believed every picture carried a story waiting to be finished. Maybe today, you just finished yours." Wang Yibo looked down at the faded photograph one more time. For years, he thought it was just an old picture hidden away in a forgotten box. But now he understood. It had never been about the photograph itself. It was about the promise hidden inside it, a promise patiently waiting for the right moment to bring two old friends back to the place where everything began. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the hills, Wang Yibo carefully placed the forgotten photograph back into the metal box. This time, it wasn't being hidden away, it was being preserved as a reminder that some memories are worth finding again. Xiao Zhan smiled and said, "Maybe this wasn't the end of a story. Maybe it was the beginning of a new one." The two shared one last look before walking down the hill together, leaving behind only footprints and a promise that would never be forgotten again. And who knows? Somewhere out there, another forgotten photograph might just be waiting to change someone else's life. If you enjoyed this heartwarming fictional story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotional adventure. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.